We're very fortunate today to be joined by Tiffany Hall, who is, of course, the chair of ADA, which is the National College for Digital Skills. Welcome. How are you today?
Thank you, very well. Very excited to be here.
Excellent.
And I've just heard Tim Berners-Lee speaking.
You've just heard Tim Berners-Lee speaking.
Yeah.
And what was your immediate reaction to that?
Oh, being in the presence of greatness.
Yes.
There was also a rather marvellous bit when he said that, he urged us all to visit CERN, which I have tried to do, and it's no longer possible. But I just had this lovely vision of everybody in the room writing it down and getting in touch with CERN and knocking on their door to go and visit.
Yeah, I'm sure many people were taking mental notes.
Yes.
Was there anything unexpected or surprising about his presentation, do you think?
I think he talked about things I did expect him to talk about. He touched on Ukraine. He talked about the values of the web and how more important they are than ever. But I asked him in the Q&A if he could have his time again, what one thing would he do differently? And he thought that perhaps the way that the domain names had been built was a mistake. So I'll go away and think about that quite a bit. And how unfortunate it was that people could automatically guess what somebody else's domain name might be and then charge them millions of dollars for it. And he thought that should have been avoided.
Absolutely, yes. And I suppose there are many people working on that. Perhaps it's not irrevocable. So it'd be interesting to see the work that's done to sort of reverse some of the original fundamentals of World Wide Web in the future.
Yes, and he talked about something that I wasn't okay with at all, which is to do with the shift towards the way in which front-end and back-end software is developed, to do with something called the Solid project. So I need to go and look that up, which I...
It sounds very meaty, very substantial. But it would be great to talk more about your focus at the moment, which is really the talent pipeline into tech. It's something that's discussed a lot in the ether at the moment, and
Yes.
it is really relevant because apparently there is this gap.
Yes.
Do you think the gap's real, or do you think there's hyperbole around the gap?
No, the gap is huge, and the frustration about the gap is that we in the tech sector have been talking about it for... Certainly, I've been part of that conversation for 15 to 20 years, and the skills gap, the job, the vacancies, these were predicted 15 years ago. I sat in a room at IBM with the numbers being rattled around, and of course the numbers have been exacerbated by the pandemic because the digital skills needs are so much greater as more and more of our lives go digital. And also, frustratingly, the jobs that are going because of the pandemic, as people all go more digital, mean that we've got people out of work who ideally we would be reskilling into digital jobs.
Absolutely.
So that's something that I hope as a sector will respond to, and it's what I'm talking about on the main stage tomorrow afternoon.
I look forward to that. Fantastic. So many opportunities around actually for people who are career changers as well as young people. And is that part of ADA's mission to really sort of feed through people from different backgrounds as well as the next generation?
So ADA is very much about people from different backgrounds, but actually we are about young people. We're not the training provider that reskills people who are already partway through their careers. There are apprenticeship providers who do that, and I think personally it's an incredibly important part of the talent pipeline and addressing the skills shortage. So, and I'll come back to ADA's different angle in a moment, but if you're in a particular business, it can be easier to retrain somebody who understands your business process in the tech skills than it is to teach the tech people the business process. So when I was in previous roles putting in finance systems, you would find seconding people who had the finance background onto your project team was incredibly useful and powerful. And when I was at the BBC, I had project managers who'd come from a program-making background. Actually making a TV or radio program is a project. Producers were brilliant at project management. And to put them into a role and retrain them to run an IT project was fantastic because they could speak the language of the production staff. So we did quite a lot of that. But at ADA, our diversity and the kind of workforce we're looking for is diverse from the point of view of gender and also from a socio-economic background. ADA has a real focus on people from low-income households because jobs in tech are well-paid jobs. You get a young person into a good tech job that will transform the lives and finances of their entire family, frankly. So that's our focus, and our statistics, our numbers in terms of our sixth formers and our apprentices are higher on both those metrics, gender and socio-economics. We're higher than all providers in the country, actually, because that's part of our mission.
That's amazing. So when ADA started, and how many years ago was that now?
Well, it was well before my time with the college, so it's more than 5 years ago. Started by two young men who were concerned at the state of tech skills in the country, but also concerned that the employer's voice wasn't being heard in terms of what was needed in that training for that workforce. And I'd had previous experience of that problem when I was involved in a thing called the eSkills Sector Skills Council, where we were finding that the universities were bringing out computer science graduates who didn't have the skills employers needed, and we redesigned degree courses that then turned out people that the employers wanted to employ. So with Ada, we have a very high level of employer engagement. We are the envy of other further education colleges, and other chairs say that to me. In fact, our clerk of the Board of Governors comments on it to me as well. We have employers who've been engaged in shaping the curriculum. We have round tables with them so that that curriculum can iterate and make sure that the apprentices are learning what they need them to learn. And we have industry projects for our sixth formers where we go into employer partners or they come to us. All of that's been a bit different during the pandemic, but we've done as much as we can virtually. So we're very employer-led, and that was the vision that Mark Smith and Tom Fogden, the founders, that was the vision they had at the outset.
It's very encouraging. And thinking about social mobility, I'm just thinking, what's the awareness level of young people in terms of tech jobs? Do you think many young people are aware that they can go into a broad range of tech jobs, especially perhaps from disadvantaged, lower economic backgrounds?
I don't think so, and I think it's hard for parents and teachers to understand the range of tech jobs, and I think that we as a tech industry should be stepping up to help explain it better. I think there are grave misconceptions about what a job in computing, IT, digital, whatever we call it, what it can involve. I don't think people realise how broad and varied it can be. And whenever I talk to young people in schools, I try and make that point to encourage a wider number of people to be interested and excited by it and to apply for it. People think it's all about sitting at a computer screen, locked away, and they don't realise that there's massive amounts of human interaction. And if you take a job such as anything to do with the user interface, that's incredibly human related and will tend to appeal to people who see their careers as being one that should be on a creative background, through a creative route. And that always irritates me, the sort of implication that being in a technical role is not creative.
Excludes creativity.
Is really quite irritating and a bit rude, frankly. So that's not a good thing. So there's a creative angle to it, there's an analytical angle to it, or opportunities to it. There are commercial opportunities. I mean, one of the commercial people I worked with in the past was to have somebody technically savvy in the commercial conversations with the cloud providers was invaluable. In terms of getting good deals. So there's a huge range of jobs, and people don't realise that. And I think it's quite hard for parents and teachers to understand that. I think that we in the tech sector have a responsibility to help them and to step up and help people understand what our industry is about, and therefore why these are great jobs to be doing.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? It seems to me that there are more and more roles that revolve around being an ambassador or being a diplomat for tech in an effort towards that sort of directive. And thinking about the sectors that young people can work in when they emerge from this training, it doesn't just stop at technology, does it? I mean, you've worked in the public sector, I believe. You've worked in the third sector. How do you think working in those environments differs from working in a more sort of industry-focused tech environment?
Just before I go into that, just briefly to say that the different sectors angle, I think, is one of the reasons why this should be appealing to more young people than it seems to be. So yes, you can go and work for a technology company, but actually you can work in retail, you can work in travel. So I started in the oil industry, which frankly I wasn't very interested in oil, and so I went to the BBC because I was much more interested in news and journalism. And then into the charity sector. And so the transportability of it as a skill should be really appealing to people. And I think it's another thing we could sell out more and be more ambassadorial about and sort of tell our story better. But the public sector and the third sector are particularly interesting to work in because because you're not driven by the bottom line, because you're there for a different type of purpose, it can drive different behaviours. And I've had colleagues come from the commercial sector who find that it makes it frustratingly slow, that there are necessary governance steps that you have with public money that you don't have with commercial money and accountability to shareholders, which is very different. So it's you have different levers to pull. In the third sector, people can get very emotional about you know what you're doing and very cross if things don't go well. I mean, we all find it frustrating when taxpayers' money is lost on a big IT project, but think how you feel if the money that you've lost has been spent badly on something that's gone wrong in your work, and that money was donated as a charitable donation by somebody running a marathon and sweating over a cake sale. And so
that's an interesting analogy, yeah.
People get very, very deeply concerned by that. And certainly with the charities where there's a very heartwarming purpose, which is of course true of most of them, you know, it can be a very emotional place to work. One of my senior leadership team said to me once, I didn't really expect to cry so often at work. And that was because of cancer stories around you all the time.
So it seems like that's another motivating factor for young people wanting to get into tech, is that they can explore these different environments with different personalities and apply their skills in varying ways.
Yes.
So it's exciting.
It is exciting. And I think for young people, and it seems to be particularly with girls, wanting to make a difference in the world, wanting to be tech for good, there are massive opportunities where technology can be used to improve people's lives. And I would say to those people, yes, if you want to change the world, if you want to make things better, there are so many ways in which technology can do that. You know, ranging from Alexa being, creating the opportunities for a disabled person to live on their own when previously they couldn't. I mean, it's just you can go on forever, the list of things. So tech is for good, even though it can be used for bad.
Absolutely, like most things. But
yes.
Do you think that's all part of digital transformation?
So digital transformation is a phrase which, frankly, a lot of people might now try to avoid in senior technical roles, because if you put 10 people in a room, you'll end up with 11 different definitions of what you think it means. And I think with some people, for example, a lot of it's to do with ways of working rather than actually to do with the software itself.
Right.
But I think in terms of achieving positive outcomes for a company, for an organisation, of making that organisation more successful, digital and transformation associated with digital works best if you have a leadership team that really gets it and isn't just sort of thinking, oh, the latest Harvard Business Review said I should do something about this.
Okay, great. And where do you see your work going in the near future? You're obviously very impassioned by it, so I'm wondering what your next steps are.
Well, I'm focusing on Ada at the moment. We've got some very exciting stuff coming through in terms of, we're in quite constrained accommodation at the moment in London, and that's preventing our growth. We haven't got any more room in the classroom for the sixth formers doing computer science. And we're expanding in Manchester.
Oh, fantastic.
So my focus is going to be on helping Ada to grow.
The expansion of Ada.
That's right, exactly.
Marvellous. Tiffany, thank you so much for talking to me today, and I hope to see you later at more of the events. Thank you.
Thank you.